Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Amdar Khan. And yes, as you know, we give you sports information from all across the globe. You guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is @ Indus News Sports. That basically works both for Twitter and for Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. Yes, from the world of PSL, the qualifier between Islamabad United and Multan Sultan is underway, while Zalmi will face Karachi Kings in Eliminator 1 tonight. And yes, a conclusive side to the US Open, John Ram birdies 17 and 18 to snatch first major title at Torrey Pines. And yes, from the world of NBA, Phoenix Suns outlasted the Los Angeles Clippers 120 to 114 in Game 1 of the Western Conference Final, while Atlanta Hawks upset the first seed Philadelphia 76ers by 103 to 96 in Game 7. And yes, from the world of football, talk about Euro Cup 2020. Italy win against Wales 1-0 in Euro Cup 2020. And yes, those were the headlines. And talking about PSL, so much of things really happening. When in terms of in-depth analysis, we surely would want to go there, talking about how Islamabad United managed to win against Multan Sultans. And the qualifier between Islamabad United and Multan Sultan is currently underway. So we'll start off with this current match that's currently happening. We'll share more in-depth analysis with Adam Bell, who's joining us all the way from New Zealand. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alamda.
Great. So Adam, we'll start off with talking about PSL and going into the in-depth situation of how Islamabad United managed to win the last T20 on Saturday against Multan Sultans, and now they're facing them for the qualifier. So how do you see the overall perspective of the PSL up till now? Obviously, it's moved to Abu Dhabi. So what's your take on the entire perspective of Islamabad United changing its fate now?
Look, it's been an absolutely fascinating tournament once it's now moved to the United Arab Emirates. And Islamabad United at the moment look really strong. And you mentioned their win the other day against Multan Sultans. Well, they left out two of their form players out of that game, Colin Munro and Usman Khawaja, and they were still able to come up with a victory, a great victory in the end, winning by 4 wickets. Chasing down Multan Sultan's 149, and it was a thrilling match. And for them to be able to win that contest without those two players is a big result for them. And they'll go into tonight's match in the playoff match with so much confidence, knowing that those two batsmen have been so good for them in this second leg of the competition, that they'll be available tonight.
Well, looking at the match, obviously, which is underway today, I think Multan Sultan truly need to focus more on the offensive side, to be precise, because I think in terms of moving the entire PSL to Abu Dhabi, the fate and the scorecard or the leader card actually changed, because when they were playing in Pakistan, things were pretty much different. Lahore and Karachi were more or less pretty much on the higher and on a better side. But now, ultimately, things have started changing. So how do you see, what strategy would you think that Multan Sultan should be opting for on today's match? Because this is surely one interesting match.
Absolutely, it's a massive match. Multan Sultans have got 2 of the top run scorers in the competition in their lineup, with Mohammad Rizwan, who has been fantastic in T20 cricket, both in the PSL and internationally over those last 12 months or so. And Maqsood, again, who's performing well as well. So I think the batting lineup is going to be a big key for Multan Sultans in tonight's match. But I think the spinners are going to really be a big key component in this match tonight. You've got one of the world's best limited over spinners in Imran Tahir. And you also got to remember that Multan Sultans have the top wicket taker in Dahani in their lineup as well. So,
right.
They've got a really strong bowling lineup. And I think for Multan Sultans, for them to win this match tonight, I think it's going to come down to whether their bowling lineup is able to make really inroads into this really strong Islamabad batting lineup. And if they can do that and contain them, I think that they've got enough good batsmen on that side that they can capitalise later, say if they were chasing or put Islamabad United into bat. So, I think that from their perspective, I think it's about trying to contain that very, very strong Islamabad United batting lineup.
Right. And talking about strong, if we look at the 6th match of the PSL, which was obviously Islamabad United beating Peshawar Zalmi, they broke the record by scoring 247 for 2. I think that was one of the most phenomenal matches to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Set up by Colin Munro and Usman Khawaja at the top of the order. Khawaja went on and made that fantastic 100. And then you've got the guys in the middle order such as Asif Ali, who's had a fantastic PSL, right, and a big hitter of the ball, and he's just had a fantastic time of it lately, and really putting his name up for a potential selection in the Pakistan T20 side later on in the year, because he's really come on in the second leg. His power hitting is absolutely phenomenal, and again, just adding a layer to the strong Islamabad United batting lineup.
Right. And if we look at, obviously, PSL allows all the players to explore their avenues. In terms of Usman Khwaja's performance, I think he surely had a lot of eyebrows, looking raised, actually, because I think he has been performing super nice. And I think this will open so many opportunities for him in the future. Yeah,
absolutely. Look, obviously, he's out of the Australian setup at the moment, but I think he's now reminded the Australian selectors of his quality. He's got a great record playing in the BBL back in Australia, but to do it in foreign conditions is another story. And he's had a great time of it of late, as you point out, that 100 that he scored. And with him and Colin Munro at the top of the order for Islamabad, it doesn't get any better than that. Look, he's an exceptional player. He's great at being able to just ease himself into an innings and get himself going and see off the new ball and get the run rate ticking over, giving Colin Munro strike. And then once he gets himself in, he's got the ability to explode later on the innings. He's a fantastic player.
Right. And talking about, obviously, the second playoff, that is Peshawar Zalmi versus Karachi Kings. In terms of Karachi Kings, and even if I talk about Lahore, they have literally lost the spark that they had when they were playing in Pakistan. I think change of the environment and the climate and the overall perspective has completely changed their performance.
Yeah, absolutely. The wheels have kind of fallen off Lahore in this second leg of the tournament, and I think it is difficult for teams to now play in different conditions that they were used to early on in the competition. I think we've also got to take into account the international players that have exited the tournament as well. That's had a massive effect on them as well. So I think a lot of factors have really come into play with their demise in the second leg. I think we've also got to consider that some of those other teams have brought some really good quality internationals in place. We mentioned Usman Khawaja for one, who's had a massive impact on Islamabad United, and we've seen a few other internationals that have kind of come in and done a job for their respective PSL teams.
Right. And one team that I think everybody is surprised on in terms of their performance in the PSL is the Quetta Gladiators. I think they have lost that spark to another level, and I think a lot of people are really, really upset about it.
Yeah, they've really struggled, haven't they? They're just at the bottom of the table. There were lots of big things talked about them this year. They just haven't been able to get the right combinations together of players, and I think with it, they've just lacked confidence. Playing obviously the second leg in the UAE, and just haven't been able to string wins together. The other night against Karachi, they were on the end of a Danish Aziz blitz. That 40 off of 13 balls, which was an absolutely fantastic innings. Safraz Ahmed trying to captain a side that's just not performing well, and you can see that he's lost a bit of confidence as well. So, like I think for them, it's probably lucky for them, or that the season's over now, and that they can look at the season and kind of look forward to making some changes for the season 2022.
Right. Anyways, I hope that we end up watching an interesting match. Obviously, as discussed, Islamabad United versus Multan Sultan is underway, and Peshawar Zalmi versus Karachi Kings, that would be tonight. Anyways, I want to talk about the next series, or the next tournament that I want to discuss is obviously the Zealand team versus India in the UK. So how are things developing in terms of the first test?
Yeah, look from a New Zealand perspective, I think so far the test is in New Zealand's favour. Early on that first or the second day of the test match, obviously the first day was rained out.
Right.
I would have said advantage India. It stumps India at 150 odd for three. Kohli was looking really good with Ajinkya Rahane, but New Zealand came out and then the next morning and really put the acid on India. They bowled extremely well. Great lines. Cole Jamieson, again, proving that he's international quality bowler.
Absolutely.
What a start to his test career. Another five. I think this is his fifth fifer in only 8 test matches. And it's really changed the game. Look, I thought if India would have got over 250, it would have been a competitive total on that pitch, especially because there was some movement. Obviously, the overhead conditions, which were overcast as well, and there's a lot of drizzle around. But New Zealand did a great job in being able to restrict India to 217, and in at stumps, New Zealand were 106 for 2 with Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor batting. So I think at the moment it is advantage New Zealand. However, from an Indian cricket fans' perspective, for them to get back into this match, they're really going to have to get out Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor quickly and try to get into that New Zealand middle and lower order, because if Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor can put on a big partnership, they'll be able to get New Zealand a really good lead. And I think from there, it'll put a lot of pressure on the Indian batsmen in their second innings, and possibly there will be enough time left for New Zealand to chase the title. So I think there's so much riding on the next passage of play once play resumes after the rain break.
Right. We're so looking forward to a conclusive side to New Zealand versus India as well. Thank you so much, Adam, for being a part of the show and discussing the world of cricket with us.
Thanks for having me, Alan Dar.
Great. So we much discussed in-depth analysis not only of PSL. Yes, PSL is surely on the right spot for us right now. It's definitely Islamabad United versus Multan Sultans. That's one of the most interesting things that's happening. And not only that, we're talking about obviously Peshawar Zalmi versus Karachi Kings. So a lot of things will develop with this. And yes, we talked about New Zealand versus India. That is still underway. And let's hope things conclude in a very good situation for that test match. But anyways, we'll take a quick break. Once we get back from the break, there is more from the world of sports coming up your way. See you guys after the break. And yes, welcome back from the break. And yes, before the break, we were discussing the world of cricket, but we also discuss all sorts of sports. To talk more interestingly, we'll talk about golf. Yes, the US Open finally concluded, the 121st US Open, and finally Jon Rahm managed to get his victory as the main leader. But to discuss the in-depth analysis of what truly happened in the world of golf, and specifically in the US Open, we have with us Kyle. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Kyle, we'll talk about Jon Rahm himself. He birdied 17th and 18th to snatch his first major title, the first US Open 2021. So what's your overall take on him? Because if we look back, he was very, very upset when he was leading at the Memorial and he was tested corona positive and he had to leave that tournament. So what kind of positives he has right now by winning this title?
It was a very, very impressive performance. Jon Rahm has been a talented player for quite some time, since he was a college player at Arizona State University and Phil Mickelson's brother was his coach.
Right.
The one knock on him was that his emotions, his temper kind of got in the way sometimes.
Right.
And I remember several years ago at the US Open in Oakmont, I don't think I've ever heard a louder trunk closing when he threw his clubs in the trunk or boot of his car and slammed the lid because he was mad. And I thought, well, he'll have to get that on roll, and he has. When he was DQ'd from had to withdraw, I guess, from the Memorial for that positive COVID test, he handled it very, very well. Right. And he came back and he didn't hold anyone responsible, and it didn't get to him, and he played like a true champion, which he is.
Right, and I was going through his interviews, and he suggested that when he was coming to San Diego, so he said that he had a very positive feeling about it, and he was already thinking that his stars are aligned to get the US title. I think he had that positive vibe to it. He was attracting this victory over all of them, all those who were struggling in this tournament.
Indeed, Torrey Pines is an extremely important place for him. He and his wife got engaged on the cliffs at Torrey Pines.
Right.
He's won there before. His first tour victory was at Torrey Pines.
Right.
That's a good place for him. So he felt very good about it, I'm sure.
Right. And talking about, obviously, if we look back into all the major names who were truly struggling to, to get there. Let's talk about DeChambeau. Obviously, he was going absolutely fine, but I think slowly and gradually, because everything ends and concludes in terms of golf on the very last day. Where do you think DeChambeau went wrong?
Well, he really had a difficult back nine. I mean, there was a stretch there he went bogey, bogey, double and shot himself right out of the tournament. Now, some of it was a little bit bad luck. His foot slipped on 13. The tee box was kind of slippery all week, but his trouble started well before that, and it just unraveled on him completely. He was hitting it very long, but very far to the right. And that didn't work very well. Torrey Pines rough was incredibly high and difficult, and it got him.
Yeah, I know. And what about Koepka? Because I think these were the main names, and I also discussed this in-depth analysis of golf with different individuals, different experts, and I was actually told and informed that no matter what happens, only those who lie in the top 5 of the world of golfers, they will be the only ones to take this title, and I think that is now the real case.
Yeah, that is exactly the case. Torrey Pines has been maligned quite a bit as a major venue, partially because there's a regular tour stop there. It's got some great views, but it's not maybe the most inspiring layout.
Right.
But they grew up the rough tremendously high, especially around the greens. That's what got Koepka. He missed a couple of greens in some very inopportune places,
right,
and he wasn't able to get up and down, and it just kind of slowly leaked away on him, most noticeably on 18 when he needed an eagle to tie the lead, and he had to lay up, and then he missed the green, and then ended up in a bunker, and, well, it didn't work out at all for him. He got a bogey, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be a tough overall perspective, an overall golf game, to be very honest, in terms of where exactly when you talk about Torrey Pines. If we look at the wisdom of Phil Mickelson, because Phil Mickelson did not attend the previous tournament, he said he wanted more time so that he could practice. But I think he ended up being a disappointment in terms of his performance in this, specifically in this tour.
Yeah, he when his driver is on, he can drive it with the young kids. He was just off enough and ended up in rough in some bad places, and you just couldn't do that this week. Louis Oosthuizen, who came in second, and came in second for the 6th time in a major championship, only behind Phil and Tiger and Jack Nicklaus. He's had a lot of seconds, and he was going along great until he pulled one left on 17 in the one spot he couldn't do it, and that was.
I think it was just the nick of time and minutes, because I think it was the very last of his performance, because he's under 5, and obviously Jon Rahm managed to get that by under 6, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So Louis was in position to come up and make and shoot a birdie or even an eagle, which he'd done the day before on 18, and take the lead, but that drive on 17 sunk him.
So in terms of, obviously, if we talk about, this is one of the major tournaments in terms of golf. So after winning this, Jon Rahm, where exactly does he see himself going up as a golfer? Because he's world number 3 now.
He's actually, after this win, he's world number 1. He vaulted into the first place now. So yes, so he's, I'd say the sky's the limit, but I think he's already up in the stratosphere. So he's got a new baby, a new wife. Hopefully those are things that have kind of mellowed him in terms of his attitude a little bit. I think that's actually what happened and what kept him grounded.
And I think that's why he also mentioned this exactly. You're absolutely right, because he was talking more about how he's aligned himself, his stars are aligned, and he's happy because he met his wife here. And now you mentioned, obviously, and it was a Father's Day after winning. Obviously, there were photographs of him hugging his father and his mother. So I think everything is all sorted for him now.
Yes, he's in fabulous shape. He seems to be in a great place mentally, physically. His game is obviously at the top of its form, and we'll see where he goes from here. As I say, the sky's the limit, even though he's already there.
Right. And talking about, obviously, in terms of Phil Mickelson, obviously, as I discussed earlier as well, how do you see him? Because I think he could have done better, but with his experience and with his wisdom, I think if he managed to at least be on a solid state in terms of the 2 games, I think he would have definitely ended up well.
Yeah. He got off a little bit of a rough start, and even for all of his canniness and wile, I think that he puts a lot of pressure on himself in the U.S. Open because he's come so close so many times there, and has famously melted down a couple of times. And I think that somewhere in the back of his head, he puts a lot of pressure on himself, especially in Torrey, which he knows very well and has played so many times and played well there. I'm sure that was tough for him, but given his long family history with Jon Rahm, I'm sure that this was probably the next best thing for him. So
right, and not only him, I think if we look at in terms of the big names, if we talk about McIlroy, I think he was out there. He wanted to ensure at the very start that he needs to be on spot in terms of grabbing this victory, but I think he ended up under one. So how do you see which round or which day was he going off that route to victory?
He was right there until the 11th and 12th hole yesterday,
right,
where he went bogey and double bogey, and that finished his chances. If he could have come out of those an even par and gone in strong to the end, he was right there. It looked for a little while like he was going to maybe come up and snatch it, but 11 and 12 got him, and that was the end for him.
Right. And Kyle, in terms of golf, now this tournament has ended. Which major tournament are we looking at ahead in terms of golf?
Well, now we're waiting for in July the Open Championship, known as the British Open in the United States, but the Open Championship, and
right,
that'll be always a wonderful test, depending on how the course and the weather shape up. The weather is always the wild card there. If it's soft and rainy, scores can be kind of high. If it's windy and warm, or you never know what the combination is going to be there. It could be all of them in the same week.
Right. And in terms of the weather, how was the weather in terms of Torrey Pines this time? Because usually this tournament is a way before than usually having it in June.
So Torrey was good. It started out a little softer, and the scoring was a little better than some people had imagined. But as the week went on, it dried out quite a bit and became quite firm and fast, which is one of the reasons why a lot of these guys ended up in that thick rough around the edges of the greens, is because their balls rolled through, and they had to try to get up and down, which is no easy task.
Right. Anyways, thank you so much, Kyle, for being a part of the show and discussing the world of golf with us.
Thank you so much.
Great. So yes, that was Kyle, and yes, he did give all the input that he could in terms of Jon Rahm's victory. Yes, and I think Jon Rahm now, as you mentioned, that Jon Rahm is now #1 because he managed to win his first major title at the US Open 2021. Wishing the super best to him. Anyways, we'll talk about the world of NBA. A lot of updates in terms of the NBA. Yes, the Suns actually outlasted the Clippers 120 to 114 in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. And remember, there will be 7 games. We'll surely be updating you with regards to that. And Suns guard Devin Booker finished the team with leading them with 40 points, not to forget. And Clippers usually always are on fire. But in terms of losing Chris Paul, that's one of the major reasons that they could not make it to where they're supposed to. And Chris Paul sat out because of the COVID-19 health protocols. And not only that, also, if we talk about Leonard, he missed his 3rd game. So I think that's probably one of the major reasons. If he and both of these members are back, things may work on their side. And not only this, we want to talk about Atlanta Hawks finally managed to win against the 76ers 103 to 96 in Game 7. So that also takes them way ahead, which is definitely going to be more interesting for them in terms of the NBA. And in the long run, these conferences finals will surely be sharing more in terms of obviously the Suns versus the Clippers, and now obviously the Suns lead. And not only that, the Bucks have actually moved forward as well. Not to forget that the Bucks are now there. They will be facing the Hawks because the Hawks managed to win against the 76ers. So I think the future development in terms of NBA is going to be very, very interesting. Anyways, I'll give you a quick update in terms of the world of football. Yes, we want to talk about the Euro Cup. Yes, Italy wins against Wales 1-0 in the Euro Cup 2020. And Matteo actually managed to score the only goal of the match. And 10-man Wales, obviously because they had lost one of the guys, so 10-man Wales sealed the second spot in the Group A despite losing 1-0. But anyways, this is pretty much it from the world of sports. If you guys want to reach out to us, you can on our social media handle, which is @Indus News Sports. Till then, take good care of yourself and bye-bye.